Hello, I'm Sue. It's lovely to be with you. For those that don't know me, I am pastor in the Elim Church in Benalmádena here in Andalusia, Spain, and it's a great pleasure to be invited to be a part of your daily encounters. And so I thought it'd be really nice just to have a very quick look. We're going to have a quick look at some of the things that Jesus said. So I just want to start in Matthew 28. This is something that Jesus said just before he left the earth. He'd been resurrected, and he says these words. Jesus comes to the disciples and he says to them, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me." He says, "Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit." He says, and then teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you, and surely I will be with you until the end of the age. So there are promises there and there are commands there. So what is he saying? He's saying that they were to go and make disciples who would then learn to obey everything that Jesus had taught the original disciples, and that knowledge will be passed on generation to generation to generation until it's reached us. And that's what's happened. And so now we are in the 21st century. We are the disciples of Jesus Christ, and we are learning how to obey all of the things that Jesus taught his disciples. So what did he teach his disciples? It's really good to know. And we've not got time to go into all of that, as we will be here for a very, very long time. So I just want to go very quickly to Acts chapter 1, because again, this is just before Jesus ascended to heaven. And I think it's so important to listen to what Jesus had to say while he was still with them on the earth. And what he says to them there is that they were to wait. Acts chapter 1 verse 8, he says wait, and if you wait, you will receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. The gift, he says, that the Father's going to send. He said, and when you receive that gift, you'll receive power and you'll be my witnesses. And he explains where they're going to witness, and basically they're going to set out from Jerusalem into all of Judea and Samaria, right up until the ends of the earth. But they were to wait for this gift of the Holy Spirit. Now, after he said this, he then ascends to heaven, and they see him go. And I find that absolutely incredible, that in their encounter with Jesus, that after he's given them this very special instruction to wait for this gift, they encounter him leaving the earth, and they watch him go up, and he lifts up, and he goes up like in the clouds and up into the sky, and off he goes to heaven. And yet they are bewildered by that. And there are two guys that turn up. I suspect, it says they're dressed in white, and I suspect that they were angels. And they say, "Why are you looking? The same way you've seen him go is the way he's going to come back." Now, Jesus before had said that he would come back. And here these angels are saying, "Don't worry, he will come back." And at that point, they remember that Jesus said to wait for the gift. Wait for this gift of the Holy Spirit. And so that's what they do. Now, they don't know really what they're waiting for. They've not really ever been filled with the Holy Spirit before. They've not been baptized in the Holy Spirit before. They didn't know what was going to happen. But they gathered together. They united together. There's about 120 of them, men and women. And they're all there together waiting. And then, after 10 days, something happens. And we know what happens, but what a marvellous thing that happens. They're waiting for this gift. And then they hear something. And they hear the sound of a violent wind. They don't feel the violent wind. They don't feel any wind, but they hear a sound like a violent wind. And they must have been thinking, they must have realised at that point, something's happening. Something's happening. We've been waiting. We've been doing what Jesus told us to do. And we can hear this sound. Now, they would know that from their scriptures that the Holy Spirit is often referred to as a wind, as a breath, as a breeze. And now they hear this sound like a violent wind coming. And then they see fire. And the fire comes and then it divides up into flames, and the flames come and they settle on each person's head, or above each person's head, I should say. And they understand they will understand the symbology of that. We don't in our day and age, but they would have understood that. When they saw the fire come, they would know that God sent fire from heaven twice, 2 times before. Once when the tabernacle was being consecrated, and again when the temple was being consecrated to God. Both times God sent fire from heaven that consumed the sacrifice on the altar. And God was showing them in those days that he accepted that habitation, the tabernacle or the temple, for his presence to dwell. And now here we are after Jesus' ascension, and the promise of the Holy Spirit is now coming upon them, and they see this fire from heaven. And what is God saying? He's saying to them that he is accepting them as the habitation for himself, that he will dwell in them. Collectively together, so collectively together they are the church, they are the temple, if you like, of God. But then the fire separates and individually comes onto each one's head. And God is saying to them that each individual person is the temple of God, that he will live in each one, that they are acceptable to him for his presence to dwell. Isn't that wonderful? I think that's absolutely wonderful. And God hasn't stopped just with those people, but he continues to baptize people in this way throughout the book of Acts and throughout the New Testament. We read of the experiences of people being filled, being baptized with the Holy Spirit, being accepted as God to be his temple in this earth. And that's still happening today to you and I. God is still filling us with his Holy Spirit. He is still saying, you are acceptable to me, and my presence will dwell within you. So why would he do that? Well, that takes us all the way back to Matthew 28, what we read at the beginning of this encounter this morning. He wants us to be able to understand, to learn and to obey everything that he taught his disciples. And he taught his disciples how to take the gospel of Jesus, to take the knowledge of Jesus, to take the message of Jesus, to take the good news of salvation that Jesus has purchased for us to other people. And we need the Holy Spirit to be able to do that. We need his help and we need his strengthening. We need his help and his strengthening to be able to understand and to obey everything that Jesus taught those first disciples. So as we encounter Jesus today, as we go through today and we look at and we read the Bible for ourselves, as we see what it is that Jesus taught his disciples, we can apply it into our lives, because we can know with total confidence that that's what he wants us to do. Just from Matthew 28 and that little bit in Acts 1 and Acts 2. And we see, if we carry on reading in Acts 2, how it impacted the disciples in those days. They become apostles, don't they? But we see how Peter went from being so frightened before Jesus' crucifixion, and now with the Holy Spirit's infilling, how he was able to understand the prophetic words of the prophet Joel, and how all of them, when they were filled with the Holy Spirit, received the gifts of the Holy Spirit. And the one that was very evident at that time was the speaking in tongues, and that gift is available to every person who will be baptized in the Holy Spirit. It's our choice. God won't make us be baptized in the Holy Spirit, but he will baptize us if we ask him, if we make ourselves available to him, if we will separate ourselves for a while and sit before him and allow him to fill us with his own precious Holy Spirit. And then we, like the original believers, will be able to go on and do some wonderful exploits and encounter God in our daily lives as we encounter people who need what we have, what God has given to us. So God bless you. Thank you for listening to me today, and may the Holy Spirit keep you strong.